It's Sandy Parker, and welcome to Crafting for Almost Everyone. I was going to sing that song, It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year, but I knew two things. One, I can't sing, and two, you probably wouldn't recognize the song because, back to one, I can't sing. So I'm thrilled that Halloween season is upon us, and I found these Halloween pals made by, geez, I can't remember the name. Whippersnappers. I don't know why I couldn't remember the name of the company. Anyway, I bought this just recently because I loved it, and it's big. It's 4.3 inches by 2.9 inches, so it makes a substantial presence on our card, and I'm going to put it on some watercolor paper that's white, and before I do that, I'm going to stamp or punch out some little bats. I have this border punch, and I thought it would be fun to just kind of go along and punch us out a few of these bad boys so that we'd have some cute little bats for in our project. I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to put them, but I thought it'd be fun to have a bunch of them. So what we're going to do, let me get the MISTI out of the way, because what if I cracked it while I was doing something foolish, because you know I have that capability. And I'll just punch out a whole bunch of bats. And that punch, I think, is from EK Success. If it's not, it's from Stampin' Up, but it does, I don't see it, but I think it's EK Success. And the next thing we're going to do is get the MISTI in place, and we're going to stamp on our watercolor paper. I'm going to be using some new watercolor pencils that I just got, and I'm excited about them because they are some ink tints, but not, no, they're Derwent, they're not ink tints. There you go. They're watercolors. They're not ink tints, though. And I've never tried just their regular watercolors. And I don't know if they still make them or not, but there was a lady that was selling hers, and she was selling all of her pencils for $1 a piece. And I thought, geez, for $1 a piece, you can't go wrong with when you're talking good watercolor pencils, right? Anybody with me on that? I am using to stamp my men Ranger Archival. I bought myself a new ink pad because I inked my old one, and I thought I was using my archival, and I was using some archival but not Ranger Archival, and for some reason it did not make the ink archival. I didn't know you couldn't mix the archival inks, but apparently you couldn't. It wasn't StazOn, don't remember the name of it, but it didn't work. I'm going to stamp this a couple times because we are on watercolor paper, so it's going to be a little bit bumpier than regular paper. It's, you know, it's going to be bumpier than cardstock. And I'm using the Canson XL watercolor paper that you get at Walmart, and I just cut it down to 4.5 by 6.5, and I'm going to put a layer behind that. I'm going to do one more layer just to make sure this is really dark, of ink, not of paper. Anyway, the Canson XL, I just cut a big sheet down so that we would be ready to roll. I might as well stamp my other image while I'm in here. I told you where I got that from. Yeah, I did. This is an old stamp from Stampin' Up called Have a Spooktacular Halloween, and I thought I'd just stamp it right down there, and well, be done with it. Hopefully I'll stamp it dark enough the first time. I am a little concerned about that, so I'm going to get my Stamp-A-Majig. Haven't used my Stamp-A-Majig in a while, and that means that some of you maybe have not seen a Stamp-A-Majig or know what you even do with it. A Stamp-A-Majig, I'm going to take it out of the MISTI because the Stamp-A-Majig will make it tricky in here. The Stamp-A-Majig is what I'll call the pre-MISTI. It was designed by someone, I don't know who. Maybe we'll call them the Majigs. I don't know. Anyway, whoever designed it came up with the idea that sometimes when you stamp, you need to make sure that your stamped image is going to be definitely where you want it to be. So they made it for one purpose. I use it for another. Let me stamp this once and I'll show you what I use it for. Once I stamp my image, I put the Stamp-A-Majig down right beside it like this. This is going to ensure that if I did not stamp this exactly right, or if it wasn't dark enough, and I think it's not as dark as I want it, I can put it right back in the same place, stamp it over again, and it's exactly the same place, and it made my image darker. It's a great product. And as I said, it was kind of the precursor, I think, to the MISTI. It was made so that if you wanted to stamp with wooden blocks, you could stamp and stamp again, you know, like double stamping, all the different techniques that they had for stamping you could do, and use that Stamp-A-Majig instead of the MISTI. So again, I got this new set of, I don't know, 30 plus pencils. It ought to be enough for what we're going to be doing today. And I think the first thing I'm going to do is color our mummy a little bit. You don't have to, when you're using watercolors, you don't have to cover every inch of your space. That's why you're going to use your brush. You're going to liquefy it, and when you liquefy it, that's going to make it so that your colors will blend into the spaces that you didn't color. So if you had a spot you missed, now's the time to kind of catch up and put that in there. I think I'm also going to use, maybe I'll use this lighter color. I'm going to use, I want my Dracula to be white, but I think he needs a little bit of color because I'm going to make his teeth white. So I think I'm going to use that color we just used, almost like a blush on him. If I have anything that's a little bit darker, I'll use that. I do have a light pink that we could put a little bit of color on Dracula. Just a little bit. We don't want Dracula to look like he's really, really in bad shape. Normally, I would use a blender pen for all of this, but because this image is bigger than what I normally do, I figured I would just use a paintbrush instead and just move the color around with this. If I need to do more, I can always do more. The white really did a nice job, but the pink just disappeared, so we're going to put a little bit more pink. And then I think Frankenstein is going to be kind of gold. And then I think he's going to have some green clothes on. At least that's what I remember Frankenstein being, kind of a gold color. Maybe he wasn't, but that's what I remember. So our Frankenstein is definitely going to be a little bit gold. Let's see if I can liquefy him. And then I think we know that our background color that's going to be under this is going to be a black, and then a layer of our actual card itself is going to be purple. But I'm going to do a layer of black underneath this because I wanted it to be pretty vivid. You know, Halloween colors, vivid. And so I thought we would do that, and then that's why I punched out all those purple bats, because I figured we could really use those to spruce everything up. I'm going to make his jacket this deep purple. It's kind of confusing to figure out whose clothes are what, but I think that most of this is Frankenstein's, and the rest, the mummy, just doesn't have anything. He's not got anything but his little cloth, a poor little fella. And I think that's Frankenstein has chest hair, which is kind of odd, but it's what it looks like. So I'm going to make the middle part of him look like it's skin in that middle section, because apparently our Frankenstein is hairy. turn this. I did some videos in the last few weeks that were horrifying to say the least, because I wasn't in camera at all because I bumped the tripod, and when I bumped it, it tilted the camera down at a really odd angle, and I couldn't figure out why my images looked so close, because everything seemed exactly the same. Well, I didn't really look at where my image was in relationship to the, you know, like where my camera was in relationship to the tripod, and there was my problem. It was just bent down, and that wasn't a good plan, let me just tell you. I gotta get Frankie a little bit more color in a couple of these places, because he needs a little more action here. And when I use watercolor pencils on a project, I like to pull the ones out and leave them out that I'm using. That way I don't get confused about, did I use that one? Is that the right color? Did I use a different color? You know, which color did I use? And I think Dracula, his stuff is all black, his clothes. But I think Frankenstein's hair, I don't know what color Frankenstein's hair is actually. In this case, Frankenstein's going to have maybe some dark brown. I don't know. I think that's our black right there. Ivory black. I should have been telling you the colors. Let me go back and just give those to you real quick. The purple I used was dark violet 25. The yellow I used was deep cadmium 6. And the pink I used was rose pink 18. And then I used a flesh pink on our mummy 16. And then white. So those are the colors we used. We're all on the same page. And now I'm using ivory black 67 on Dracula's hair and on his coat. Oh, you know what? And in his eyebrows, because I think his eyebrows need a little something. Every once in a while, you know, you need to be a little spruced up. I also think that Frankenstein's fingernails need to be black. Isn't that gross? That's just what I remember from Frankenstein, is that his fingernails were black. Maybe they weren't, but that's what I remember. And for some of these things, because of the detail work, I think I am going to go in and use a blender pen just to go into for the finer details. Now let's see. Let's do a little black around the edge of Dracula's collar. Okay, right there. I'm going to put a little bit more color around the bottom of the big boy's coat and liquefy that with our blender pen. I'll be able to make it more of an arc that way because I'm using the blender pen. Then I guess that's his chest, so we're gonna make that the deep cadmium as well, because you know that's his chest, apparently his chest hairs. He's a very handsome man, the kind you might take home to mother. I think his teeth need to be a little gunky. You know, I can't imagine that his teeth would be pretty. Can you? I think his teeth are probably like that color, kind of horse brown, we're going to call it. Not a nice color, but then again, he's Frankenstein. Okay, there are our boys. I think they look pretty good for Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Mummy. And they're having a spooktacular Halloween. So I'm going to take this stuff and get it out of the way, and we're going to do our background and finish up our card. I met a lady through my search for the perfect wet glue and fine tip applicator. Her name is Lydia Fiedler. She was so nice. She's a Stampin' Up! Representative, and I was on Split Coast Stampers asking everybody on that channel, can you tell me what would you recommend for a fine tip glue pen, or a fine tip in general, and or wet glue? And Lydia said, I really recommend the new Stampin' Up! Fine tip glue pen. And I said, well, you know, I'll have to buy it. She said, don't buy it. I will send it to you. And so this lovely lady that I've never met sent me this bottle, and I think that was just lovely of her. Thank you so much, Lydia, and I'll make sure I get that video up. I'm down to the end of my research, and believe me, there are a lot of wet glues out there, so I wanted to make sure that I didn't kind of partially do this job. I wanted to do it really right. So that's why I wanted to make sure that if I did it, I tested out a bunch of glues. And so I did. This is a quick stick. If you're not familiar with it, it picks things up and then sets them back down. And so what I thought I would do with my little bats is this. I thought I would take this glue and put a little drop on the back, and then I'm just going to set these bats around on this card, hopefully. The problem with the whole quick stick is that letting go of it and making sure that your glue stays is kind of the tricky part. So we're going to see if we can master this. And I'm going to have Rich fast forward through this so that you are not having to watch literally glue dry. Okay, before I go any further, I want to give you just a little recap on how this fine tip glue pen worked. Actually, this is the first time I've ever used a glue pen that was fine tipped that I could use, that I could get the glue out of. It came out very quickly. It wasn't hard at all to squeeze, and I really, really liked it. Lydia, thank you so much for this. That was really a godsend for me, and I'll make sure that I put all of your contact information in this video and in the one that I do on wet glue. But honestly, everyone, you should consider trying that if you're looking for a fine tip glue pen that works. Oh, and the other thing that was really important, I always have trouble getting that tip back in, and it was like nothing to put it back on. Did you see that? It was I mean, usually I'm like struggling, in, out, no problem, love it. I did burp it and pulled the air back out of it to make sure that it didn't clog, because I'd heard that in general that's a problem with the glue pen, so I wanted to make sure I told you that too. So let's, this is the crystal effects I told you I was going to do. I thought I would do a little crystal effects on Dracula's hair. Well, what happened was, originally, in my attempt to look for fine tip applicators, I found bottles that would become fine tip applicators, so I put my crystal effects in here thinking that would work for me, but it did not. It clogged, and that was my problem right there was trying to figure out a way to get it unclogged. So I apologize that sometimes my projects just don't go the way I want them to by virtue of these kinds of little issues. When I'm experimenting on something, trying to figure out a way to make it work for all of us, I end up making problems in a video. And I didn't mean to, but these are the things. I thought it'd be fun for Dracula to look like his hair and his shirt were plastic. Because why not? Because, you know, it's cool to have him look like he's shinier than the average guy. Also, I want to put a little bit of this on the fingernails for Frankenstein, because I kind of thought Frankenstein should have a manicure. Why not? Why are you holding that against Frankenstein? Just because he's put together in pieces doesn't mean he can't have a nice manicure, for gosh sakes. Frankenstein just wants to be like the other guys. Oh, and I gotta get his bolts. Didn't get his bolts yet. I did use a Sharpie that was silver on his bolts, but I want to make them shine because his bolts should be glistening. Let's make his little pearly whites, shiny little pearly whites. I don't know what to do with that poor mummy. He's got nothing going for him. He doesn't have any shiny on him. Okay, so back to my other story. My girlfriend Linda was thinking that I needed this Smooch stuff. I've never had it before, and I've never used it before, but I thought we could use it on the medallion that our Dracula has. Should I use it on Frankenstein's teeth? These are the things I just don't know. I mean, I knew I needed to use it on this little medallion. What about if we use it on its teeth? I think we're going to go with it. We're just going to dab a little bit in amongst his pearly yellows. And that way he's a little friskier looking. Okay. So that was the Smooch. I feel like our little fella on our little mummy, he's just sad. He doesn't have anything going for him. I am going to put a little bit of the crystal effects on the mummy because he's pretty pathetic. And I'm not going to put a ton on. I'm just going to put enough that his bandages are a little bit shiny. Not the whole, I'm not doing all of the bandage, just enough that the bandage has some life to it. Because it's not right that he doesn't have anything. For jeez, I mean, he is a mummy. Poor fella. He's got nothing going for him. We will let all of those things dry, but in the meantime, before we let that dry, I do have to say I'm loving the gold teeth on Frankenstein. I don't know if you noticed, but some of my bats I made go over the edge. That way it would look more realistic when I cut them off, which of course now I'm going to do. So I'm going to turn it over, keeping my hands as far away from the things that I will screw up as possible, and I'm just going to quickly snip off these edges. Lydia, that glue is really holding, and I'm loving you because I didn't think it would hold on this this watercolor paper, but it held like anything, so I'm really excited about that. I won't make his hair shiny or his face, just his jacket. And that way he's frisky too. Let me get my layers and I'll be right back. Okay, I know what you're thinking. She's lost her mind, but I have this Martha Stewart purple glitter, and I thought I would just sprinkle it around on my buddy's coat. And I'll just blow the rest off. Now Frankenstein's got some big bling. So I got my layers. I'm going to do a purple background, and then I'm going to do a layer of black, and I do have some foam, fun foam underneath that, but I have this passion flower ink that's one of my metallic inks, and I thought I would just go around the edge of this white card with the purple to make it all kind of blend together better. And while I was playing, because you know I had a moment off camera, I found some of those little sparkly rhinestones and thought, hey, wouldn't that be fun on my card? So I did add some of those. I know I'm starting to lose my mind, but I'm having such a good time with this card because it's just my first Halloween project, and I love Halloween projects. It's my favorite holiday to make projects for, just because it's so, as I said, it's just such a, it's so fantastic. It's like Alice going through the looking glass, and I don't even know anything about that movie, but it just seems like that's what Halloween is. So that is Passion Flower Hero Arts that I made a metallic ink out of, and I'll link the video on how you do that. At the top, that little eye will show up, and you can do that. Then I'm going to do the inside of my card first. I wanted to have a layer that you could write on. So I'm, almost had a moment there. So on the inside of my card, I'm going to lay this layer of orange. I wanted to put the orange layer in so that you'd have something to write on. And I also want to make sure that this has a little bit of fun stuff on it too, so I got a few stamps out to play with for inside here as well, because you know, why not, right? Let's live on the edge. Have a fun card that's got all kinds of freaky things on it, and maybe even get it in there straight. We're going to go with Elegant Eggplant by Stampin Up. In fact, I think that's the color of the paper we're using too. Isn't that a coincidence? Get our little trick or treat going here. Now you can see it. That's what we were shooting for all along. Well, at least I was. I don't know what you were shooting for, but that's what I was shooting for. Trick or treat. Cute? Yep, it is. And because I think I need a frisky little ghost on my card, I'm going to get some black ink and ink up a little skeleton and maybe a bat. And maybe the word boo. I don't know. It's all seeming so exciting now. I just don't know what to do. But he's really fun. And these stamps, I swear, I think my friend Elicia sent them to me. Elicia, I'm so sorry if you sent them and I did not remember that, but I think that she did because she knows how much I love Halloween and she loves Halloween. And he's very fun. Look at him. Isn't he fun? Trick or treat. Should he say boo? I think he should. I think he should say boo in black. Why not? Boo. Cute. I got a little schmutz on the card. What else is new? Wouldn't be a card of mine if I didn't get a little of that on there, right? I'm going to lay this layer on top of this, and then I'm going to wrap the string around both of them and then tie my little green thing onto it. The tricky part is figuring out what glue will hold that down, and I think I'm going to go with tear tape. When in doubt, tear tape's my buddy. Love that tear tape. I'll take this off for now, and normally when you do this you're going to put your tear tape on your bigger piece, but I have a problem because my bigger piece is still wet, so we can't go with that system. So I'm just going to lay some tear tape along this and hope it doesn't stick out the edges of where our design is. Hope it doesn't. That's the goal. So let's put our Frankenstein onto this. Hopefully be able to line it up pretty well. Not bad. I don't want to touch anything that's wet. As I'm sure you can imagine, a lot of it is wet. Okay. And then we have the foam behind it. So I'm going to take my string and it's just I'll call it crochet yarn. I don't know exactly what it's called, but I'm calling it crochet yarn. And I'm going to wrap layers around the bottom of the boys. Pull it a little bit more because I want one layer to be right there. Okay. And then I'm going to go around it just a couple more times. I want it to kind of look almost cobwebby. That's a word. I don't think it's not a word. Maybe it isn't a word. We're going to say it's a word. Okay. Only this time I'm just going to cut this thing like that, and I'm going to tie it to my knot. So here's our base. I know I've said this 13 times, but here's our base, and we're going to put it all together. I had all kinds of problems with tying my knot on the around the green thing that is my embellishment, and in the end I just said I don't need to go through that kind of angst, and I got rid of it. I just stuck foam tape on the back of it and some tear tape on top of that and attached it to my card. That's the outside of our card, and then the inside we have Trick or Treat and the little boo fella, and then now all we need to do is our envelope, and I'm going to go with the orange theme that we had from the inside of the card on my washi tape. As you know, I'm a washi tape girl, and I think it looks really cute when you make sure that your card and your envelope have some consistency. And I'm going to do one excuse me, one extra step to this card to make it work with the rest of the card, and that is I'm going to take some Versafine Onyx Black and a bat, and hopefully this little fella will be wanting to hang out on my card, on my envelope. Oh, look how cute he is. Cute! Very cute. Put him on the front as well. Why not? We'll put him on the bottom right hand corner so he doesn't interfere with our mailing of our package. There he is. And then, as you know, there's one final step I do with all of my cards, and now I'm adding a second step. As you know, on the back of my cards I always put my stamp that says, I'm sorry, I've got it get in the way, my stamp that says I made this for you. It's important to me that people know that these are handmade, but they don't have to think that they're made by me necessarily, just that they're made by someone. And I got this stamp that I thought was really sweet. I had it made. It says, I'm wishing you a day filled with joy. And I thought I'd put that on the backs of my envelopes. So here's our card finished. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Try a Halloween card. It's early, but let's get going. It's time for us to have some fun. Don't worry, there's lots more Halloween videos coming up and fall videos. I love this time of year, and I love making cards related to it. So I hope you'll join me in the fun and subscribe. Please tell your friends about me on social media. I really appreciate it. Thanks again for watching. Bye-bye.